Hey there, just a quick message ahead of this episode to say we hope you like the rebrand, which includes a new website, rawuk.com, that's the URL. On there you can listen to and watch all our previous content. You can get extra content. You can also buy our first ever Raw merchandise and even sign up to become a Raw member, which will keep us going and keep you at the heart of this exciting journey, earning perks in return. We need your support, so please do check us out at rawuk.com and remember to like, comment and subscribe to everything we do on all our channels. And of course, make sure you tell all your pals. But most of all, enjoy this latest episode. Cheers.
Your name's not down, you're not coming in.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Raw. My name's Tom Latcham. Well, today's guest is a popular Birmingham DJ and promoter and a rare female artist who came out of the 90s rave scene. She's played house, hard house, drum and bass, and as the 90s rave scene developed so fast musically, she was running an old school night in the mid-90s when the very same music had not long been counted as up front. Since then, she's owned record shops and continues to run a successful online ticketing agency, although, of course, that will have had problems in the last year, and we're going to talk about that. But she's also still spinning the wheels of steel. Well, that is when COVID allows, of course. She is the one and only Mistress Mo, and she joins us now. She's Mo Jones. Hi, Mo.
Morning.
How are you doing? I'm all right. How are you?
Very well. It's nice and sunny today. Makes a change.
Yeah, it does. We're well, to be honest, don't know when this is going to go out, but by that point there might be glorious sunshine every day. But we're in just at the end of May, and it's utterly miserable, isn't it? So how you been for the last? It's the last year. We'll come on to it in more detail. But how are you? How have you been? Obviously, selling tickets is not probably the best thing to be doing during a pandemic.
Outdoor festivals as well, which is pretty much what we specialise in now. It's been fairly horrific and shocking, but you know there are definitely positives to be taken from the last 12 to 18 months. Having a bit of a breather is definitely one of them. I think a few people have agreed that having an enforced break is actually quite good for the soul. So a chance for a bit of reflection, chance for some family time. Can't say that I've actually had any fun doing sorting out the cupboards or sorting out the house. Still a state. All these annoying people on furlough that have had, totally tidy gardens and that. None of that's happened. But it's all good. It's all good. I feel like there's light at the end of the tunnel, finally. I'm just keeping my fingers firmly crossed, for June the 21st. We'll see.
Yeah, me and you both. Well, forgive me for pointing it out, but it does feel rather strange of us to feature a female artist since there were so few in the 90s rave scene. And after DJ Rap, who we interviewed last year, you're just the second woman that we've interviewed in 9 months, which is pretty depressing. But it is a reality of the 90s rave scene, unfortunately. We're going to discuss why it might be later, but was it obvious to you at the time that there was a lack of women involved behind the decks or on the mic? And how did that feel?
Do you know, I'm really lucky because I've never really considered, and it sounds ridiculous, I've never considered myself a female. It's not kind of the first thing that I think about. I'm just me, and I've just always done what I want to do. I've been very, very lucky in life that I've always been able to do what I want to do. And it never really bothered me, to be honest. I did an engineering degree at university, very handy. And so that was a very sort of male environment. Most of my friends are blokes. That's just how it ended up, I think.
Well, looking back 30 odd years on, and the progress that we've made in terms of gender equality, I know we've got a million miles to go, of course, but there have been major steps in terms of female equality. How mad does it seem that there were only a handful of female rave artists among the many dozens of rave artists in the 90s, or doesn't it feel that mad to you as someone who lived through it?
I think looking back, taking the position that we've got now, it feels totally mad because there is obviously absolutely no reason at all why women couldn't and shouldn't have been, more prevalent in the scene. But at the time, I don't know. I honestly, I was hoping to come up with some wonderful, well-informed answer for you about this, and I'm afraid I've spoken to loads of people.
Should we just stop?
There still isn't one. It's just, women were out there, whether they just didn't put themselves forward, whether there was too much of a boys' club, didn't want to let the girls in, or whether it was just the girls are just happy to rave and not do it. I just don't know.
Okay. Well, look, we will try to. I mean, I'm not going to say that we're going to come up with an answer, Mo, today during this podcast, but we will have a go at exploring it in a bit more depth a bit later on. As an old school DJ and promoter, you obviously like or love the early 90s sound. What is it about that sound that got you hooked and has kept you playing it and promoting it for 30 years?
I mean, I'll be honest and let you into a secret here. When I first started going raving to the free parties, to some of the early fantasias and things like that, I didn't really think about the music either. It wasn't like I wasn't even really aware of DJs and stuff. I just went for the party and to have a good time with my friends. You know, when I think back to some of the warehouse raves and stuff, I tried to think, what music did I even hear? And I'm not sure I could even tell you. So it was just, I think it was the whole thing. It was the kind of the scene and the music and the getting there and the excitement and the fact that this scene was like growing under our, you know, it was developing as we were taking part in it. You know, it was amazing. But I think the whole package kind of comes together rather than necessarily the music. I think now playing old school, it's tricky. It's hard to play old school music. It's hard to mix. It's slow. There's a lot of different BPMs going on. One tune does not necessarily mix with another tune. You'll suddenly get some mad key change halfway through the middle of a record. You know, when I'm preparing for a set, I really have to work quite hard on an old school set to avoid some major clanger. You know,
You thought you'd be used to it by now, Mo.
Well, yeah, there is that. It doesn't cost a lot of money either anymore because I've got all the tunes now.
That's true. So, I mean, that excitement that you describe, and again, we'll talk about it when we move through your early years in the rave scene. Though that excitement of the whole package, as you put it, of the rave scene, music, atmosphere, productions, etc., and also, I suppose, the outlook of the ravers. Does modern rave music have that same appeal still? And I know you still go to raves.
Yes, totally does.
Really?
It totally does. And one of the things I'm most looking forward to about going back out raving is all these like talented, creative people that have been stuck indoors for a year and a half with their recording equipment. I'm expecting some amazing music when we get back out in the field. Yeah, so I literally can't wait. It's different now, and you have to accept it's different. And all us old fogies harp on about it's never going to be the same. It isn't going to be the same. There's no way. You know, we went out without phones, without sat navs, without, you know, we dressed to be comfortable. You know, no one was going to remember it afterwards. Frankly, you were lucky if you could even actually remember it, let alone have a sort of video or photograph memory of it. So it was totally about that moment in time previously, whereas now there's a lot of recording going on and sort of showing off to your mates and having to look good because, you know, it's part of the experience of the night out. But I still, raves now are great.
Sort of does suggest that whole photographing thing and wanting to be seen, that perhaps the rave scene is not really any longer for us.
I don't know. Don't take that away from me. I mean, I work hard. I'm a mum of 2 kids. You know, I do all that graft. I run a business. But as long as I can go raving a couple of times a year, that's it. That's my, you know, that's my box ticked, and my soul is happy to do the mundane stuff. But, you know, don't take raving away from us fogies. It's not going to sit well.
I think a lot of people will be saying amen to that, Mo.
X amount of pressure, X amount of roar.
So I'm here with Mistress Mo Jones. You live in Birmingham and you put on lots of events in Birmingham. You had a record shop in Birmingham. Your life is centred around Birmingham, basically. But you're not from Birmingham originally. You haven't got a Brummie accent. Where did you grow up?
Here, there and everywhere, really. I started off life in Surrey. I did a spell in Essex. I think that's where the kind of twang comes from. I was 12 when we left Essex and moved to Salisbury in Wiltshire. And I spent my sort of teenage years there. And really, it was getting a car at the age of 17, living in a small, sleepy village, and just like had to get out of there. The last bus home was like 9 o'clock. So, you know, getting that car, passing my driving test. I think it took me 2 months from my 17th birthday to get my driving test, and then that was it. The world was my oyster. But Birmingham happened because of I came in to go to university.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll talk about that shortly. But what sort of music were you into growing up? Because given you've travelled around, some of the music will have been different. Certainly, rave music had different elements in different areas.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it's terribly non-cultured of me, but I wouldn't say that I was a particular like mad muso. It wasn't really until I started playing myself that I really focused on music and what I just used to like going out and dancing, and frankly whatever they were playing. I mean, the thing is, it's interesting because I've got old rave tapes where the mixing is absolutely shocking, and I used to love those tapes, love them. And then after I learned to DJ, it was ruined because I could hear the train just like shit.
But they were different days. They were different days, though, weren't they? Where it was like, they were mixing on a crate, and people on the stage and all that. Now, and they also probably, let's be honest, because it was vinyl as well. So a lot of them probably weren't very good DJs, because DJing there wasn't that many people doing it. So it was like, right, they're the guys that do it. Now you really have to be shit hot because there's so much competition.
Yeah. Yeah, and it just goes to show, doesn't it, that the main focus really of your night out is the tunes, the selection, and and what they're actually playing.
That's true. That's true. So when did you develop that interest in rave music? If you were just a party goer at first, how did that change into becoming what you are now, which is a promoter and a DJ?
I think probably the first proper party that I got involved in promoting was '93, and we had a DIY party. Diggs and Wash played, and so that was kind of sort of techie, bit ravey, quite underground sound. But when I think I got my decks in '93, and at that point I was playing house music.
Okay.
And
so why house if you've been going to hardcore raves?
I don't know. I liked it.
Fair enough.
I bet maybe my first kind of box of records that I bought were house records. Thinking back to a friend, Jay in Bicester, like he sold me my first tunes. I was like, well, I've got some decks, what I'm going to buy, and just sort of kind of went in and probably the guy behind the counter, it was his influence that kind of started me off. I mean, it seems bonkers now, doesn't it? But I wasn't really thinking about it at the time. Just this is good. Let's mix.
Okay. And what was your first rave? The one when you got your car and you were able to go to those first? What were your earliest raves? And can you remember? I mean, maybe you can't remember actually by the sounds of it. You probably can't remember what they were like.
I mean, the whole rave thing was a complete accident, and it was Gemini, who I really hope is going to watch this at some point. She lives in Thailand now, but she at school was just like, I need somehow to get to this rave. I most passed her driving test, so she was like, "Come on, Mo, let's go." And it was a swing rave in Andover, which wasn't that far away. And I was just like, oh, whatever, fair enough, I'll come with you. And obviously on the Coca-Colas, because I was driving, and it was that night.
Very good, well done, very good.
Yeah, obviously very important not to drink and drive. Never mind the other. Yeah. And halfway through the night, I found myself on a podium, sweaty, and just like, well, okay, this is the thing. I've kind of found my future. And so, yeah, Gemini Adams, I totally blame you for my entire life, in a good way.
Well, I hope she does watch it. That'd be nice.
But the car was totally it. Literally every weekend, just jumping in the car and going, wherever. But again, there was no internet then. Youngsters watching this now will not comprehend how insane it was. If you went to a party, a free party, 2 weeks prior, and you said to your mate, "I'll meet you in such and such a service station in 2 weeks' time," at 7 o'clock on a Friday night or whatever, you were there because you obviously had phones, but generally speaking, you didn't dick about. You stuck to the plan, and you found the convoy, and you flipping followed that convoy come what may, because if you lost them, that was your night ruined. So I actually think that being a free party raver turns you into quite a good driver as well.
Probably quite a good promoter too, because you have to be very organised.
Yeah, definitely.
And what were your favourite early raves that you would go to?
I mean, I went to Spiral Tribe, squatted the Camden Roundhouse for a few days, I think maybe even a week, and I ended up at their New Year's Eve party there in '91, and that was utterly insane. I mean, the Roundhouse anyway was an amazing venue. It was derelict at the time. I can't even begin to imagine how dodgy it was. I don't know whether they had security. I'm sure we paid to get in, but you can imagine inside it was just like dogs and kids and bonfires inside. But it was absolutely like an amazing experience. I have a feeling we went back there maybe a couple of days later, but this is how crazy. I think I went from Spiral Tribe straight off to Fantasia, or the other way round. And I would think nothing of driving. And my car was a mini Metro. I mean, it was like I think it was a 1 litre mini Metro, bright orange. And again, no sat nav, none of that. And you just drive and go to the next rave. And then, you find someone who needs to go somewhere, I'll take you home. And that was another 100 miles out your way. It didn't matter.
Was it the community that really appealed then in that regard?
Totally. I think my entire life, if not just my sort of rave life, has always been centered around my community, my friends.
And what did your parents think when you were jumping in a car and just heading off around the country all weekend?
My dear parents, and I'm sure I've lost my dad now, but my dear old mum probably will end up watching this. So I love you, mum. But it's your fault too, because you bought me the car.
I don't think she could be blamed for that.
It wasn't until later in life, really, that they found out the sort of whole horrible truth about my rave history. But I don't know. I mean, I would get in my car on sort of Saturday afternoon and just drive off into the wilderness. And quite often I'd come back on Sunday morning. So I had a job working in a pub. So I'd go out raving all night. I'd be back at the pub for 8, clean the pub, get dressed, get changed, waitress in the pub in the afternoon, no sleep, and then come home, eat some food and crash out on Sunday night, but because I was good. I was a good girl. I went to school. I did A-levels, I had a job. I was nice to my family. I was just a complete record.
Brilliant. And would you take inspiration from the raves that you were going to, good and bad, when you later began to promote?
Yeah, I think definitely. It was all about, and Flashback's ethos was all about the party. I mean, it was just, we put so much effort into the detail, to the decor, to the lineup, to everything. It should have been more of a moneymaker than it was, but we always kind of just spunked that bit more to make it a little bit extra special.
Mm. Well, that's always a balance, isn't it? Because then if you don't do enough, then people won't come to the next one. So it's you've got to balance up. And okay, you weren't that into the music at that point, but at some point you did become into the music because you became a DJ. And if you hadn't, that would have been impossible. Which were the DJs that you really rated around that sort of time and you looked up to as inspirations?
And again, I didn't really sort of know individual DJs until I started booking them. But I think my favorite, Jason K, Top Buzz, is an absolute diamond legend, just totally lovely man. He would phone me and ask me like how my family were doing and things like that. So much respect for him. Mickey Finn's another one. He was my first kind of really, I was trying to get hold of him, got a number through someone else, and I had his number stored in my phone, and then my phone rang one day and I was like, oh my god, Mickey Finn's ringing me. He'll probably laugh at this now, but so those guys, really, they've been there all the way along. Mark and Everson, Rat Pack, there's loads actually.
And what was your view on MCs? Because they do divide opinion.
Well, again, in the hardcore scene, it wasn't such a big deal at the time. Obviously, you get someone like Everson, he makes the whole Rat Pack experience. You couldn't have Rat Pack without the MC. And we had SL2, Slipmatt Lime and JJ. JJ was very important to their set. We had Rayan from Shades of Rhythm. So those kind of MCs were always, and even when we started doing sort of some early jungle at Flashback, we had like Fearless or GQ, MCs like that would totally complement the set that was happening. Hosts, they would host the set rather than just yatter all the way through it. So
I think we can derive your opinion on MCs from that.
The drum and bass room at Flashback didn't have MCs for years.
Right.
And the DJs used to absolutely love it. we caved in the end. But then a bit later, I started a night called Homegrown, which was a drum and bass night, and we didn't have MCs there either.
What difference does it make?
Oh, listen, I mean, I get it that having a crowd hyper is fantastic. I mean, it really, sometimes when I play a set and I haven't got an MC, at first I'm a bit like, oh, no MC to support you. But actually, it puts the emphasis back on you to play a sick set. That's a terrible word, isn't it? A great set. I think Rap described it as destroying the room.
She did.
it's easier. It makes your life easier with an MC, I think. But I also you can really get in the zone when there's no MC, and you can just get in there and play your records. Or even, like I say, that second arena at Flashback, it was always packed in there, the drum and bass room, super sweaty. No one complained that there were no MCs, not for a long time.
Okay. And so you eventually did decide to become a DJ. You did become interested in music. Why? And at what point?
So, like I say, I got my decks in '93. I think.
Yeah, but why did you get your decks in '93? If you weren't interested in the music, something changed.
Do you know? I think I came across a set of decks at my friend Stu Hackett. There's another name. He had a really cool student house, big detached house. He had decks upstairs. I went upstairs. The way that I remember it is he came upstairs and was like, "Wow, who taught you how to beat match?" And I was like, "No one's taught me how to beat match."
Really?
And I was like, "Well, okay, that's quite cool." Wow. And he was just like, "That, just get some decks." I got some decks and went and bought my first records or whatever. And it was just, I think it was really being the residency at Slag was the thing that really kind of set me off on a proper sort of DJ trajectory, to be honest.
Okay. Well, we'll talk a bit about Slag a little later. It's not what it sounds like. It's an acronym. So I mean, it was obvious then that you had a talent for DJing quite early on.
I mean, it didn't seem to be a thing. It was quite. I mean, I want to name drop another name here, which is John Hollis, who was the resident DJ and promoter of Crunch, which was a massive name in sort of Birmingham club history. And he just said to me, you know, just don't touch the record when you're mixing. Use the pitch control to mix. And that piece of advice to this day has stood me in good stead. And I don't know, I just loved doing it. I absolutely loved doing it. So yeah, I was lucky, really lucky.
Well, you moved to Birmingham for university to do your engineering degree. Was it because Birmingham was a good place to do engineering? Or
when I was at school, I had a boyfriend, so I decided I didn't want to go more than a 2-hour radius from my mum and dad's house. So Birmingham was about as far away. And when I drove to all that you can put 5 choices down, I think, when you're doing your A-levels. And I drove to each one. One was Reading. I went to Cardiff. And when I came to Birmingham, something just felt really good. I couldn't really tangibly put my finger on it. You know, it just, the campus felt nice. Birmingham felt good. It was just like, this is the place for me. And again, it was just total potluck. So, you know.
Oh, you owe a lot to it. And so how long did it last with your boyfriend?
Oh, he dumped me before my A-levels finished, yeah.
No, that's always the way. I mean, that was what I was going to say. I mean, we all move somewhere for our partners, don't we? For our early first loves. And then it all goes horribly wrong, either within a year
of moving here. A couple of weeks before my A-levels.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks.
Oh, well, I'll fuck off to
I'm
Birmingham.
over it now.
Good. I'm glad to hear you're still holding a grudge. Birmingham was revelatory for you because you did put on your first event at the uni there in 1993. Did you plan to put on events at university, or was it sort of just a happy accident?
No, not at all. And we were still first years, remember, at this point. So we'd been partying hard. We kind of met the crew that were putting on the dance music parties. We kind of were going to the weekend raves and stuff. And when we decided to do a party, they were all like, you're first years, you can't do a party. But to be fair, again, thanks to Stu, whose decks I started life on, they had a little thing going on and they kind of helped us out. They had a society at the university that we were able to sort of borrow their name and kind of do it under their official sort of route into the university in terms of hiring the venue and stuff. So we kind of learned early on that you need help. You need to work with people that have done it before. And it was a total sellout success. I mean, it was only like a 400 capacity venue.
Only? That's for the first event. That's amazing.
It was great. And it just demonstrated really that actually if you put your kind of heart and soul into something and it was genuine, we weren't doing it for the money. We were doing it just because we just wanted to put on a party. So
did anybody notable play at that party, or was it a minor?
That was the Digs and Wush party.
And it obviously gave you the bug to carry on. And then that same year you got your first paid booking as a DJ. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was trying to find a flyer actually before this interview, and I can't find the flyer, but I was on the flyer as DJ Mo, and it's a big white flyer, and it was at a club in town, and I think I remember it being utterly nerve-wracking. I think I used to write my sort of set list down on a piece of paper just in case I, forgot what I was doing.
I mean, that
in
seems
those
like
early days.
seems like an eminently sensible thing to do, Mo.
I can remember someone finding that list once and was like, "What?" And I was like, "I know, I'm really sorry."
No, that's what, but I mean, comedians write the stuff on their hands. I mean, it seems like
Right.
a sensible thing to do to me. I mean, it's what someone who is super organized, aka you, would do. So, and how did it go?
I think okay. I mean, like I say, very hazy memories of the early 90s, I'll be honest with you. I don't think it was a disaster. So
Did it come about? Did it come about from the promotion?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it was just we were well we just there was a scene, you know, you were either in the scene or you weren't in the scene. And if you were in the scene, you know, people knew people. And like I say, when I landed at uni in 92, I had like short dreadlocks. I made my own clothes. I mean, I must have looked such a state from like the years of raving anyway. But at the freshers' ball, they called it, in the Deb Hall at the uni, SL2 were playing. I mean, I was just like, this is fucking brilliant. You know, I've given up my sort of rave. I gave up raving for a bit to do my A levels. I thought I need to knuckle down here. And then I landed, and then on that first at that first party, Lisa, God rest her soul, spotted me. She was a second year, you know, and she was just like, "Oh, you look like a nutter. Come and meet all my mates." And you know, they were the promoters and the DJs at the time. They put on various warehouse parties. They were the guys that started Crunch. So literally within the first few weeks of being at uni, I'd found my people. You know,
Right.
brilliant.
Nice. And you used the name Mo, which did change later to Mistress Mo, more of which later. That's a reference to the slag thing. But without this being too daft a question, Mo, how did you come up with your name? You don't have to answer that. I'm messing around.
I've been Mo since I was like 4. I mean, you know, I'm not even really.
Are you
sure
Maureen? Are you Maureen? Are you Maureen?
I'm not Maureen. No.
Are you not?
You have to do your homework and find that one out.
What is it?
It's actually Melissa. It's not that.
Why is Mo short for Melissa?
No. It is in my world.
Well, there you go. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Most people that I'm in contact with now, because obviously everything's like email and whatever, think I'm an Asian man, and then when they meet me, they're like, "Oh, you're a white woman." Okay, fair enough.
Is that right? That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, not with your surname Jones. There's not many Asian people called Jones.
No, true.
And did the music that you played change through the years?
Totally.
And if you've played it all, how did it change as time went?
I mean, I'm so
by?
fickle, you know. I know that there'll be sort of pure heads watching this, just like, "Oh, how could you possibly do such a thing?" But like, so I started with house, and then it was like handbag house for 94, 95, the kind of gay clubs, that kind of thing. I had a hard house phase. I've played at Sunday Central, and then it wasn't, and then obviously the old school was kind of going on alongside this when we started doing Flashback in 96. And then it wasn't until I think 97, and I heard jungle drum and bass for the first time, and I was just like, "Oh, right."
You didn't hear jungle until 96, 7.
Not proper like drum and bass. Not right, it was something. Yeah, I think I heard a like world dance tape or something like that, and I was like, "This is the music for me."
Right. Okay.
And I was still playing house, but I was going to play my house sets and then sort of racing to the nearest drum and bass club afterwards. So I was just like, this is silly. I'm going to play drum and bass now.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah.
I stopped playing in the hard house and techno room at Flashback and started playing in the drum and bass room, much to, I'm sure, lots of people was like, "You can't do that." I was like, "Oh."
Well, did the fact that you played lots of different types of music over the years impact on the number or quality of gigs that you got?
I don't think so. I mean, it's, you know, everyone makes their choices in life, don't they? And I kind of, when I did the tour in 97, this young upstart called Lisa Lashes was playing as well. And then she went from sort of nothing to meteoric superstardom like overnight. And I guess I was a little bit like, "Oh, I could have done that maybe if I'd just been a DJ." But, you know, we were promoting the parties. We were soon to have the record shop, and it's like you really kind of need to be a bit more focused if you want to be, you know, if you want to be a superstar, really.
Is that why? Well, as well, down to the fact that you never produced as well, because of course,
probably, Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I made it into a studio once. It was a Christmas present from my long-suffering business partner Jimmy. He got me a day in the studio with our dear departed Tango, actually, and I did love it. But I realised again, if I'm going to do this, it's going to need a lot more time and focus than I've got.
So you went down that route instead, which has worked out for you quite well. We're going to talk about it next.
Oi, oi! Go check out the new digital 6-track EP, A New Hype, from the 14-year-old DJ Seema. Yes, 14, on fullthecoolrecordings.bandcamp.com. That's fullthecoolrecordings.bandcamp.com.
DJ Seema.
Did that work? I mean, sounds more ravey in Essex than Warrington though, doesn't it?
We really hope you're enjoying yet another one of Raw's in-depth interviews about the rave scene, which we are proud to say are now all curated into the British Library Sound Archive. All of us here at Raw HQ love how much you love what we do, and your generous one-off donations have been a huge help in covering our initial costs. But we're now a team of 5, putting in a combined 80 hours a week for no wages, with big plans to expand further, and so our costs are going up. As such, we could really use your help to keep Raw growing and developing, as you've seen us do since our launch in July 2020. First up, go and check out our brand new website. It's rawuk.com, where you can find loads of cool extra content, and you can grab Raw's first ever range of merchandise. That's rawuk.com for our new flashy website. We've also launched a new membership scheme where you can support us financially to create more content on an ongoing basis for less than the price of an oat milk cappuccino, plus you get great perks in return. Head to patreon.com/rawukpods. That's patreon.com/rawukpods to see exactly what's on offer. You can also join our YouTube membership, which is basically the same. Or if you're not after about a membership, but you'd like to support us with a few quid as a one-off or a repeat donation, then head to our website and click the PayPal link. A reminder of that new website URL, yet again, rawuk.com. Big love and respect to you all. Please keep supporting us. Hope you enjoy the rest of the act.
On Friday the 20th of August 2021, a new event, Return to Source, celebrating 90s rave, hardcore, jungle, happy hardcore, drum and bass and techno, touches down at Suki 10C in Digbeth, Birmingham. We have Fusion South Coast legend DJ Druid, Quest and Fiber Optics DJ Fallout, the Uprising Northern legend that is DJ Paulo, and London Town's final trickster playing his first happy hardcore set in over 18 years. Tickets are priced at only £14. Just search Facebook and Eventbrite for Return to Source Rave.
Here we are on Raw with me, Tom Latcham, and Mistress Mo, aka Mo Jones. Mo, let's talk about Flashback now, because that's what you really are known for and famous for. You put on your first Flashback in 1996, becoming resident from day one, again at Birmingham University. I won't ask you how you became resident at your own event, because that sort of answers itself. An old school event in the mid-90s. Why?
I know it sounds a bit bonkers, doesn't it? But again, I have to credit Jimmy here, my business partner, because we'd kind of worked together. We'd seen other people putting on parties. We were regulars at kind of Crunch house nights, and it was just like, you know what, no one plays rave music anymore. You know, he was really into sort of Fantasias, all the sort of big legal raves at Aston Villa Leisure Centre, Starlight, those kind of gigs, and yet there was nowhere we could go to hear that music. So he was like, well, let's try that. So you know, it at that time, we called it old school. 96, but we were playing sort of 89 through 92 music, so it kind of, you know, it was basically trying to at that point it was really trying to recapture that kind of rave scene that we'd both loved from slightly different perspectives, and it just instantly was kind of took off. It was like we were not the only people that were missing that kind of sound.
Well, we ask our audience for questions when we announce our guests. And if anyone wants to get in touch in the future with any questions when we announce, you can email us hello@rawuk.com, or you can search for us at Raw UK Pods on all social media. And ENS on Facebook has asked how it felt and how much of a risk it was to put on a 100% old school main room back in 1996.
Well, it was risky because it was a new concept, but it was we reduced the risk because it was a university event and we were kind of a society at the university. We were providing a service for students effectively. So I can't imagine that it was very big budget stuff. I don't think we had any real guest DJs at our first event. Sorry to Tot and Simon M, who both played but are both our buddies. So I'm not sure they counted as kind of big.
I mean, you could have just pretended and massage their ego or something.
But we again, it's like going that extra mile, isn't it? So anyone who knows Birmingham University will know that the club on the top floor it opens out onto what is called Mermaid Square, big fountain mermaid and all the rest of it. And remember, these are the days before like people got very serious about things and health and safety was like ridiculous. And we had a full gyroscope, and we put speakers outside, and it was a lovely evening. And so people just went outside and they were raving on the statues and raving on the tables, and the gyroscope was going, and it was just, the whole thing was just crazy bonkers, but utterly brilliant.
Yeah.
So, yes, it was risky, but it was low budget. And it was only really by selling the tickets and kind of getting the crowd in there that we then knew that, the risk of the concept had been proved.
So you knew early doors that you were onto a winner.
Yeah.
What was it that you felt made you stand out from the crowd? I mean, obviously, being an old school event in '96, mate, it does that. But was there anything else about the event that made you stand out?
I mean, I think we got booted out of the university. They realised that we weren't students anymore. So I graduated in '96, and so that at the time felt awful. Sometimes really good things happen from bad things, don't they? And you have to kind of, rather than feeling defeated, you just have to crack on. And that's when we put it to Crunch that we should host the upstairs room at Crunch. And so we took it from a student thing into town on a Friday night. And again, I think it was a win-win for us because Crunch was a ridiculously popular night anyway. But once a month they put us on upstairs, and that opened up to a whole new audience. And so that gave us both the bigger budgets to put better DJs on and all the rest of it. So that was really our stepping stone into doing Flashback at the Q Club.
Okay. Well, ENS, again, he asks, he's obviously a big fan of Flashback. He says, was there any plan that you and Pilgrim as residents would play less obvious tunes rather than banging out the obvious anthems that a lot, brackets, not all, of the guests would play?
I mean, that is such a good question. Thank you, Ian. I feel utterly privileged to have been Flashback's resident since day one, because when you play that many sets, and I often did do the warm-up set, but sometimes I'd put myself on a cheeky, main slot set as well. But the audience would trust me to play like ridiculously horrible underground tunes at times, and they'd know that if they didn't like that tune, well, just hang on a minute because there'll be a good one coming up in a minute. And so, yeah, I mean, Pilgrim is the same. He never really reaches into his anthem bags particularly. And it was brilliant because it gave us that opportunity to just play really obscure stuff. I mean, not all obscure, in a set you play some bigger tunes and whatever, but you kind of always aim to take your audience on a bit of a journey. And when you're doing a guest slot, it's hard to do that. It's hard to do that because you haven't got that kind of relationship with your crowd. So yeah, great question. And yeah, I'd like to think that there's quite a few undiscovered gems in my collection.
Well, maybe you could do a guest mix for us, Mo. I'll ask you about that afterwards. And if she says no, by the way, or one doesn't appear, it's because she said no. No pressure, Mo. So when did it become a job for you, and did it change the way that you felt about the whole thing? Because I know that in 1998 you opened Old School Days. You also moved to the Q Club, so I imagine it was around about that time. But forgive me if I'm wrong. But is that around about when it became a proper job? And I think getting the shop was the serious thing. We had been doing Flashback, since the move to Crunch, and we started to widen our horizons. Then we started delivering flyers and posters sort of further afield, sort of Midlands, go down to Oxford or whatever. And we
We hired a Fiat Panda Super Black, thank you, Carlo, from this dude for I don't know how much a month, too much. And that was literally our office. So we would sit in this fucking car with a box of flyers and tickets and whatever. And we would drive around the country. And while we were driving, we'd be sorting out lineups and cash and all that kind of stuff. It was insane. And so by the time we got the shop, it was basically to use it as an office. And at that point, it just felt like, box ticked. But again, we used the Prince's Trust. We put a business plan together. We worked with South Birmingham Enterprise Centre. So again, it was kind of, we had the support to do something like that. And again, for youngsters wanting to get involved, go and get help. Go and seek, whether it's local authority or whatever, people are out there to help you get a head start in life, and we used it. I think we got a $3.5 grand grant, which at the time was like an insane amount of money. It was amazing. Yeah. But so the shop was the start of it being more serious for sure.
Okay. And so you used it. It was meant to be an office, but it obviously was a record shop too. And you will have become one of the sort of hubs of rave music in Birmingham. That must have been a heck of a lot of fun.
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, don't get me wrong, it was ridiculously hard work. We'd open at like 10 or something, but we'd be open till 6-7 o'clock, 6 days a week. There was only me and Jimmy. Alongside running the shop, we'd be still delivering flyers and posters to everybody for Flashback. It was long hours, but I can remember like mates who sort of from Wheelie Castle would get off the bus, and they'd come in and have a smoke, and when it was okay to smoke indoors and listen to tunes, and it was blink party hard, play hard, I think was the ethos of that time. Sure.
It wasn't all fun either, though. I'm going to fast forward very, very slightly for one vignette. You got nicked in 2004 for selling drugs. Tell us.
Oh, it was absolutely horrendous. So at that time, there was a legal loophole with the old magic mushrooms. So it was we were a bit of a head shop as well. We were selling sort of legal hires and that kind of thing. And as long as your mushrooms were fresh, they were classed as a produce, not a product. So Jimmy, being the resourceful chap that he is, found an old Coke fridge from somewhere, like a big tall Coca-Cola fridge, and that was our mushrooms fridge. And we had Hawaiians and Mexicans and whatever, and people would come in and we kind of advised them about what doses to have and all this. I mean, yeah, to be fair, we shouldn't really have been selling magic mushrooms to people, but they were brilliant.
And they were legal.
And they were legal. I mean, we paid VAT on them. This is the ridiculous thing. We from our supplier, we were paying the government VAT. So we kind of felt like we were okay. We didn't sell ecstasy tablets because that was illegal, right? We didn't sell marijuana, but we sold magic mushrooms. Anyway, one day Jimmy popped out to get a burger or a sandwich or something. And at exactly that moment, the police decided to raid the shop. Full on bands, blue flashing lights, this, that, and the other. And they all kind of trooped in like it's a drug. And it was just like, dudes, the drugs are in that fridge there with a sign on it and a menu and like a price list, and here's all my invoices with VAT on them, and but it was a scary thing because actually the charge was intent to supply a class A drug. I was on bail for 9 months. Really? I spent a lot of money on solicitors' fees, and it was like it would have gone to Crown Court because of the severity of the charge, and I was looking at potentially, I think the stretch was like 7 years or something like that. Christ. So it was, I laugh about it now, but at the time it was horrific. But in the end, it got thrown out because the judge was just like, look, I don't agree with what you're doing, but this isn't the way, I can't risk putting these people inside for 7 years. I'm going to throw it out. And we always thought, that is the way the British judicial system works. Apparently, you have a few test cases and that kind of sets that. But it would have been so much easier than say, we've now decided that psilocybin is a whatever class drug and you can't sell it anymore. We've gone, okay, fair enough. So
what did your mum think of all this?
I don't know if I told her at the time.
Does she know now?
I hope so.
Oh, well, she does now. Hello, Mrs. Jones.
All good. It's all good. Just another of life, a little funny stories now.
Well, so you obviously, you said yourself you're a wreckhead. How do you balance being a wreckhead with doing all this stuff, which needs an incredible amount of organisation?
Infinite resilience, I think. I mean, like I say, I kept diaries for years like really detailed diaries, and when I read them now, I literally cannot understand how I managed to do what I did.
You should release though. You should do them as a book.
I don't know if anyone's really that interested in my rave antics, but
It would be fun. I think you'd sell a few.
It would literally be Friday night and Saturday night, and and like I say, but it started early. Like I say, I used to go to school and do a cleaning job and go raving. It was just, I think, if you've got that kind of work, I don't know if it's work ethic, I don't know what it is. It's just, that has been my life, and that's pretty much been my life all the way through, even till now. Late nights, early starts, lots of work.
My girlfriend describes me as, and this is probably, it reflects upon you, what you are, is that I'm the most sensible, naughty person that she's ever met.
That's a good, I feel like, I'm a sensible, naughty person.
Yeah, and that's not a bad. That's not a bad thing, because it means that you can have fun, but you can also, run your life without it all collapsing into a disaster. So back to Flashback, 1998. You held your first Flashback at the Q Club in Birmingham. Psy, Groove Rider, and Rat Pack. What was it that made you decide to take it to another level? Was it just that it was so successful where you were previously?
Again. A helping hand, an external helping hand. So I got a phone call. My agent, actually, at the time on the DJ tour, got a phone call from a chap called Gerald Bailey, and I had this very sort of cryptic message like, "My name's Gerald Bailey. People know who I am, so do your homework. I'd really like to meet you." And it turned out that Jez was the promoter of Atomic Jam with Danny, and so we went for a meeting at his office in Wolverhampton. Diffusion was his clothing shop, and I can still remember it to this day, like, being a little bit sort of terrified and a bit like, what's going on here? And he was like, I've been watching what you've been up to. I've seen the sellout events you've been doing at Crunch. You need a bigger venue. How do you fancy doing the Q Club? And me and Jimmy were just like, yeah. And he went, my buddy's Groove Rider, do you want to book him? And we were like, yeah. So really, it was the start of a wonderful working relationship with those dudes. Danny and Jez, thank you, because we definitely couldn't have done it without them. But so Jez is he promoted Quest. They had Atomic Jam. Danny had been involved with Ratty Tango and Fallout. They literally just propelled us to the next level.
Amazing.
What.
Your career's had lots of lucky happenances. It's great. It sounds great. Fantastic. What
I'm
a
not
nice
religious, but I do occasionally say a little thank you just in case.
Well, it's all right. It's all been paid back over the last year, I would imagine. And Ashley Boodhoo on Facebook asks, my favourite Flashback was the 5th birthday. That DJ size set at the end was fire. What was Mistress Mo's favourite Flashback?
Ooh, wow. I think the Christmas special 2001 was an amazing event, and I think it was so amazing because it wasn't really deemed to be a special event. It just, something happened that night. It was just so electric. We had one in June at the Q Club, and it was the night of a England football match. I think we beat Germany like 5-0 or something like that, and that was amazing. So we could hear the queue outside, and then all night the MCs were boning on about this amazing win. So that was quite an obvious one, but I think Christmas 2001, and then this sorry tale about the last ever. People always say it's the last ever. It's like we were told in 2011 that was it. Q Club had been sold to hotel developers. It was the last one, and so again, going the sort of extra mile, we said we've got a surprise for you at 6 o'clock. Don't go home. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, instead of closing like we should have done, we had a set with Mickey, bass, Lenny, for an extra hour, and nice. That was because you only had the proper hardcore ravers still there at 6 o'clock in the morning. No one really knew what was going on, so it's like you had to have faith to have stayed. And that hour, 6 till 7 on that last one, that was magic. Yeah.
Wicked. Well, Ian S again. He's as I say, he's a big Q Club fan. He's asked him about the Q Club getting closed. He said, "How frustrating was it that the Q Club kept getting closed, and last ever event due to redevelopment, then nothing happened, then it reopened, etc., etc."
Well, we only did 2 last ever events. And so the amount of grief I get for it, you might have thought we'd done 4 or 5, but we literally did that one in 2011. And it was proper sad. We were all sad at the end. It was very emotional. We'd had this amazing set. you know, and that was that. And then I think it was only 8 months later that the managers at the Q Club came back and went, oh, it's all fallen through, do you want to do another one? And we were just like, oh, for fuck's sake, do you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be really disingenuous to do another one. But then on the other hand, why would we not do another one? If it's not closing, then, you know, so that was really frustrating, because it did dent our reputation a bit. It dented our credibility. You know, people were then questioning, was it just a money-making scheme? It wasn't a money-making scheme, you know. And even now, you know, the place is still empty. It's absolutely tragic. It's such a beautiful building. I mean,
any chance it might reopen, or is it's gone now? It's
I stayed in the Grand Hotel this weekend, fortunately, an anniversary treat with my dear husband, and that has been derelict for 20 years, and it cost them 54 million to do it up. Now, it's a bit bigger, I think, than the Q Club, and they were obviously doing it up to hotel standards, but I just can't. It is such a money pit. The whole fabric of the building is just, you know, when we used to do the reunion parties in there, we would go in there during the day and get the sound guys to set up their sound system and play the dirtiest, heaviest bass all day, as loud as they could, because chunks of plaster would fall out of the ceiling. And we were like, we need that all to happen during the day before the ravers get in here, because we can't provide everyone with a hard hat, you know. I mean, there were literally doors roped up to the ceiling to hold the worst bits of the plaster. So I think it would take, you know, I used to say if I won the lottery, I'd sort the Q Club out. It would take a lot more. It'd have to be a Euro Millions win.
Yeah. And how do you feel about all that? And you know, I never went to Q Club, unfortunately, which would have. I hear about it is incredible things. So I feel like I've really missed out. But you know, how did you feel when it finally shut, and how do you feel now to see it? There's still bloody empty. You know, not just sitting there.
I think sadly it's inevitable. I think that because the club scene had kind of moved on, because of commercialism, because of health and safety. I just think the Q Club had its day, and you know, I must say a big thank you here to Jez Collins, who's sort of curated this in the Q. So if you're interested in the Q Club, go and look at this in the Q. We're going at some point to have an exhibition when we finally get a chance. He's made a film about it, so it's been well documented, even from well early, much before the kind of rave scene. I just think it's just one of those sad things that we're not going to be able to do anything about it. But I'll tell you a quick story. That 98, that first Q Club gig we did in June, I'd been busy doing all the office and admin stuff at the shop all day, and Jimmy had been down the club with the dudes doing the sort of deco and the sound system and stuff. And then I ended up getting down there with my box of records, and it was already open, and I kind of got up on the main stage and I kind of put my records down. And I turned round to look at this like cathedral arena full of inflatables and lasers and backdrops, and literally just I did I cry? I might have cried. It was an unreal sight, breathtaking, you know, that kind of space. So yeah, it was epic.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it must have been like. That Jim Flynn on Insta says you're a top booking, by the way, for Raw, and he asks favourite Q Club story. Is it that memory, or are there others that stand out in your memory?
Yeah, I think. I mean, that first night is a good one. We used to call them Q Club virgins. So we'd lead a Q Club virgin all the way in, all the way down those long corridors, up the stairs at the back, and then we'd pop them out up at the top of the main arena, so they'd look at the stage, and kind of watching the expressions was brilliant. And you know, and I used to after my sets or before my sets, you know, I'd love that place. I'd go and stand up there and just rave. You know, it's just like, it's all very well being downstairs in the box office, boring. So luckily I had other people to do that, or even on the stage was wicked, but you're on the stage looking like a knobhead, or just go and have a good old rave with the ravers.
You know, there's something I think that incredibly special and very few experiences that I've ever had in my life top standing above a busy, big, packed rave where everyone's going mad and just watching it, and like the thrill of it. I love seeing people dancing. I love seeing people having a good time, and just the thrill of that. I remember there's like, I found a spot on Slam and Vine on New Year's Eve. I found a spot like in the Sanctuary, which was like, I don't know why it was there. It's like a ledge, and I sat on this ledge really high, and they did the countdown, and I just looked at my mate and I was like, this is the fucking shit, man. Like, this is it. This is what we're going to do, man. Like, because I didn't get into raving until quite late, which is why I probably didn't go Q. But like, it was just like, whoa, look at all these people having such a great time. This is buzzing. So yeah,
totally.
totally
You're just riding the wave of that, aren't you? Just feeling it. And again, because the Q Club is like an amphitheatre, all of those seats around the side and then right up the back were seats.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling a bit tired or a bit jaded, I'm sure that's how we got away with doing 6 o'clockers for so long, because you could just go and have a little sit down and you were still totally part of it,
That's interesting. And was the closure why you stopped doing regular flashbacks?
Well, not really. I mean, we did our 10th birthday in 2006. That was at the Custard Factory, and then we did these kind of reunion parties 2011, 12, and 14. But to be honest with you, we look with rose tinted spectacles now at how good those parties were. I think they were quite hard to sell at that point. I mean, you needed to put 2,000 in the Q Club to make any kind of money and for it to look really good. Right. And I have a feeling those last couple of reunions were hard. I can't remember if it was the last one. I think we broke even at like midnight on the door. And we're like, bloody, all this work and effort to literally break even.
Why do you think that was?
I don't know. Obviously, we look back now and it was all so special and whatever, whether we were a bit spoiled, whether by 2014, which was that last one, people kind of sort of our generation they were sort of going off and having babies and having proper jobs and not really realizing this special thing that they'd left behind at that point. We never really appealed to students, so we didn't have that take up. The Q Club was always this big, scary place. It was a very mixed crowd. So I don't think we had enough new blood coming into it to keep it going, to be honest.
Well, Derek Smith on Facebook asks, will there be another flashback? And when? And my question is, if there is to be more, what would a flashback reunion, the next one, look like in your mind?
So one of the things that I take really seriously is the importance of flashback to so many people. It's like one of those kind of sacred things. Flashback was an amazing rave in an amazing space. It's got so many precious memories to so many people. And I've been asked loads and loads to do more parties, the armchair ravers, as we call them. I don't see flashback in a nightclub. I just don't. It just seems like it's belittling the kind of might that was the flashback that went before. But when Pete, Weird Science, asked me to do an arena at the Legends gig in 2019, that ticked all the boxes. It was a massive outdoor marquee, big stage, big sound. There were other great brands there, like Money Pennies and God's Kitchen and Sunday Central. They were all there. It was a daytime event, very important to the elderly raver.
Yeah.
So that I felt like that was special enough to sort of bring the flashback brand out of retirement. And that something like that will be, if we do another one, and I really think we probably will do another one, I just need to find the right space. It will be a daytime rave. It will probably be outdoors.
Will it be a solo event, do you think?
I don't know, because, we are all knocking on a bit now. And I know people say they're keen to come out, but will you come out? And will, tickets would have to be expensive nowadays. Things cost a lot of money. DJs cost a lot of money and it's risky. I think the last budget for the Q Club was like 25, 30 grand. That's a lot of cash. So potentially doing a joint thing or licensing the brand to be part of a bigger event is perhaps a safer thing, but I'll only do it if it's right for flashback.
Maybe you can get in touch with the Prince's Trust again.
I think I'm a bit too old for that now. It's for young people, isn't it?
We'll get some young people involved, and then they can apply for you on your behalf. You talk about, it's risky, obviously, being a promoter, and you just highlighted some of the risks there and why it's often better to share the load, so to speak. Have you ever had any absolute disasters? We had Chris Paul on the other week talking about Orange, and he put on an event. He was telling the story of put on a big event at the Essex race ground or something, showground, and there was an issue with the traffic and people couldn't get there, and he lost 60 grand.
My horrific story is quite similar. The 10th birthday in 2006 sold out. I think the license was about 1,500 at the Custard Factory, and again it was a bloody football day. It was an England World Cup day, and we'd done these like e-tickets, and so people were given a code to come in rather than handing over a piece of paper, and it was slow. It was too slow. You know, it was quite a new concept at that point. E-ticketing, people didn't know their number or whatever, and we only had about 900 through the door, and then the police turned up, and because the queue was so long all the way down Digbeth High Street, I'd like to name it, but I'm not going to. Lovely police officer insisted that we were already up to capacity and shut the door. And so we shut out, 700 people, 800 people, nearly half, which A, they were destroyed. B, any promoter will know it's the last few hundred tickets that actually make you any money. So we'd gone from this glorious celebration of 10 years, sold out, wonderful, should have been the best night of my life kind of thing, to this horrific shit storm. And then spending the next, normally after an event like that, when you've worked so hard to put it on, driving all around and staying up late and all the rest of it, normally you collapse in bed for the next few days and recover. But no, I was straight back in the shop. Queue of angry people out the door, wanting refunds and stuff. So it was a hard way to learn a lesson. But then out from that experience grew the kind of e-ticketing side of what we do now. We were one of the first people to kind of do QR codes and sort of make it all electronic. So it was a really harsh way to kind of learn that lesson. But again, kind of looking for silver linings, it's done us well now. Yeah.
Well, we'll talk more about ticketing and what it's been like. I'm interested to know the differences between then and now, and we'll come to that later. But you are, as we've said, one of the rare females in the scene. So very shortly here on Raw, we're going to talk to you what it's like to be such a significant female in the 90s rave scene.
Your name's not down, you're not coming in.
This is Raw, the 90s Rave podcast with Tom Latcham. That's me, and Mo Jones, Mistress Mo. That's it. That's it. You are, as we've said several times during this interview, one of the few female rave artists from the 1990s. But let's start as Mo the Raver. What were raves like in the 1990s for women to attend?
So I went to some pretty dodgy raves, I'll be honest with you. So I've got both sides really, because I went to some of the legal parties as well. The illegal side of things, I feel very lucky to have got away with it. But again, it was like I was 17. I'd driven there 100 miles from the safety of my family home to meet buddies, and they were utterly amazing. It didn't matter what colour you were, what sex, how old you were. Everyone was just there. Everyone had sort of united in this party, and sometimes they were, they'd be blocked off by the police, and you'd dump your car and you'd be running across fields. Sometimes it was warehouses. The Holloway Road in London was one. And it was all about that sense of achievement that you've made it in. You were in the rave, and it was really naughty, but it was bonkers and great. And I mean, I can remember one warehouse party, someone had a football and we were kind of just all running around kicking a football. You would never get away with. So that kind of naughtiness and that total sense of freedom in the free party scene. And then in the morning someone would light a bonfire or whatever. And then the other side of that, I did do in 92, my boyfriend at the time had a gyroscope, and so he was working at Fantasia Summertime. So we got to Fantasia Summertime in the afternoon and set this gyroscope up, and then kind of waited for everybody to come in. And so, saw Fantasia Summertime from start to finish, and what an amazing rave that was. And did some of the big Fantasias down at Exeter Arena, West Point. Did some of the gigs down at what's the one down south of Bath and Bristol. So just incredible. People were just there for the moment, no phones, none of that, just totally on the vibe, enjoying the rave.
Well, we often hear how prevalent it is for women to be sexually harassed, assaulted, even in bars and nightclubs. Were 90s raves different? Did they feel safer than other places? And if they did, why do you think that is?
I mean, I was a teenager, right? And teenagers don't have a kind of a safety awareness thing going on. We would be in these dark places. There would be no security. I think, talking to friends of mine that came on these journeys and these adventures, we were really lucky to get away with it. We were never mugged. We were never attacked. I think they were self-policing. I can remember seeing someone dragged up on stage and beaten up, actually, and they'd caught him mugging people. And that was how the sort of free party people dealt with it. You know, you come here and you mug our guests, you get beaten up on stage. That's how it works. But I guess I don't know whether it didn't happen or whether I was just lucky, but it's not something really that,
that's good.
that I've ever had to worry.
Well, De Martin, who is a female audience member of ours, not only that, she's a female producer, and we've played one of her tunes on our Raw Track Attack. So go and hunt that out, because cracking tune. She asks on Insta, I'd be really interested to learn about the gender distribution in the scene. Was it 50-50 men and women at raves? Were women more common in certain occupations?
I don't think it was 50-50. I think raving has always been male dominated, and I don't know again why. Is it because the men were more I'm hazarding guesses here. Why do more men go to football? I don't know. I don't ever feel like, even now actually, I still go raving. Hospitality is my favorite. I like the all-dayers. There's definitely more women, I think, now than there was then. Because those raves are really safe, aren't they? They're very accessible. It's a very sort of white middle class crowd. It's quite young, quite studenty and whatever. And so I guess the safer it feels, the more likely you are to get women there. I've got to be honest, at Flashback it was definitely, be lucky if it was 20% women, to be fair. But it was really? it was kind of 50-50 black and white. So racially, we were very well distributed, ticked a lot of equality boxes there. But I think from a gender perspective, it wasn't. But
why do you think that is? Because, I mean, obviously on stage, they've got you as a role model. So you'd hope that might have had some influence, but apparently maybe not.
No, I don't think so. I think it does come down a little bit to that sense of, why did you go raving? Because your mates are going raving. So if you've got a gang of guys, we're all going to go raving tonight, and it might be that, the girls go off and do something else. I don't know. But I think with the Q Club, it was always, there was that documentary, wasn't there, about the dealers at the Q Club, and they showed those kind of long, dark corridors, and, there was always a fight or two happening, and it didn't have a particularly great reputation. So I don't know if it just didn't feel like somewhere the girls were happy to kind of go.
And in terms of rave artists, why do you think there were so few? This is where we're going to try and get into the crux of this. I mean, I wonder, is the situation down to promoters? Is it down to protectionist DJs? Is it a lack of role models? Or is it perhaps even situational, down to women perhaps eventually getting to a certain age, wanting families? And let's be honest, being a DJ, you have to put in the hard hours. It's like stand-up comedy, isn't it? There's not that many female stand-up comedians, because you can't short circuit the experience of playing on a crap setup in front of, in a small event. But unfortunately, those events, if you're talking about comedy, they're sort of in, far-flung places that are maybe full of men. All the comedians are men. It's all men. And it's just not very appealing for a woman to go and, travel for 3 hours to do that, to play event 1 hour, and then, all that sort of stuff. But
yeah, I mean, I don't think it's that, because I think, as women choose to have families later in life, I think there is plenty of scope from sort of whenever, 17, 18 through to 30, 35. You can put your hours in, and you can do your traveling, and you can do your sort of smaller clubs and stuff. So before that sort of desire to settle down kicks in, I guess lack of role models at the time, potentially, because it is that, isn't it? Generally it's like you want to see people doing, and giving you that aspiration. I just don't know if it's because boys are more confident. They see another chap DJing and getting all the glory and the girls, and they're like, I want a piece of that. Whereas,
and as you pointed out earlier, it doesn't matter if they can't necessarily even DJ, because they don't give a fuck. They're just like, I'm up on stage.
I think it's better now. I genuinely think there are definitely more female DJs doing it. They're more acceptable. The only thing, this is something else, when I was thinking about chewing this issue over, I was thinking, because I'm a resident DJ, and I know, and it's fine, that when you look at that stage, it doesn't matter how good the tunes are and you see the resident DJ, you don't have the same feeling as when you look at that stage and it's Fabio or Groove Rider or someone like that. There is definitely that sort of status thing, that sort of fame, and it's the same as a warm-up band at a gig, I guess, and then the headline band coming on. There's something pretty special about that. And does that kind of then translate to the female thing? No bloke is ever going to admit to looking up at the stage and being a bit disappointed to seeing a bird. The same way that, no one ever admits to voting Tory. But I do wonder if there's a little bit of that. If the promoters are worried, if I put a girl on, are my crowd going to like it as much? Am I going to sell as many tickets?
Well, that's something DJ Rap said during our interview. And by the way, if you haven't listened to that interview, we met up face to face a few months ago, and it's a really interesting chat about that. She says that in a way she had to put on masculine qualities, I suppose, whatever they might be, in terms of like, I don't give a fuck what you think, mate, or I'm going to smash it. And I hear about this in my day job as well, where I work with underrepresented people in sport, that say for instance, British Asian footballers, they have to try 20% harder because they're starting from a lower base. So in the same sort of way, Rap was like, well, I've got to be the very best I can be, and I'm going to destroy those rooms. And I guess, I don't know, maybe I'm asking you as a woman, maybe it takes it takes a certain sort of woman to be like that.
It's absolutely right, because you put a lot of pressure on. I think even in all scenarios, women put a lot of pressure on themselves. They're very keen. Women are very keen to doubt themselves, very quick to doubt themselves. Which they shouldn't do. And I think that does happen more to women than it does to men. And so you do have to go that extra mile. You do have to know you've destroyed that dance floor, so that when you come off, you're like, I've done a blinking good job there. I'm happy with that. And so, yeah, because of that, maybe that makes that step to actually doing it that much harder. Because if I'm going to do it, I need to be that much better than the boys' club.
We often hear male rave artists saying things like, well, there were plenty of women in the 90s rave scene. They were just behind the scenes running things, Chemistry and Storm ran Metalheads, and there are other people who they point out. But it just, how does it make you feel that women don't really get credit for being the creatives or the DJs? They basically just helped organize, much like in the nuclear family, really.
I don't know. I don't really have a chip on my shoulder about it. I spoke to Fallout, actually. I asked her opinion about this, and she was like, I've never thought about it. I don't have a chip on my shoulder. I don't consider, I've always got on great. I've done a good job. I think in the festival industry that I work in now, most of the festivals are owned by blokes, but run by women. Nearly all the event management companies and the event teams are women, and women are trusted to do that job. You think about DJ agencies, a lot of the DJs.
It's probably more that men aren't trusted to do the job.
Yeah. This is gross generalizations, and I know.
I know, of course.
It's kind of like that. Women will be like quite satisfied that I know that I've done a great job because of my organisation. This party or this festival is going to happen. All the boxes have been ticked, the health and safety has been signed off, all the rest of it. You boys go out and take all the credit, and we'll sit here just quietly and relish the accomplishments that we've had.
Interesting. And when you became an artist, did you ever experience any sexism, either overt or covert?
I don't think. If I did, I probably just didn't notice. If people were trying to be sexist to me, don't get me. I'm so lucky because I've never had to do that arse licking thing. I've never been that bothered about being a DJ. If you give me a gig, that's great. If you don't want to give me a gig, that's also great. Because I had Flashback and people wanted to play there, I'd quite often get offered a gig in the hope that there'd be a reciprocal gig in the making. Right. So I've never really had to do that thing where I've had to put myself out there, and that I know that I'm really fortunate for that.
Well, do you think your career would have been any different if you'd have had a penis rather than a vagina?
Probably wouldn't have been as good.
Really?
Because to be honest, I know for a fact, I played the main dance tent at Shambhala Festival in 2018. And I know they booked me because I'm a woman, because they told me, because they're beautiful and they're lovely people. I played late night sets at various different venues at Shambhala Festival for over 10 years. So I've earned my stripes. I've done the 4 o'clock set. I've done the 5 a.m. set, smashed it out the park, modestly, she says, every time. And so when I got the call to say, do you want to do and it wasn't like Sunday afternoon, which I thought it was going to be a Saturday night. Do you want to play like one of the headline sets Saturday night, warming up for, I think it was Crust, Clue. I can't remember. I was so excited. I can't even remember who I warmed up for, but, it was an absolutely awesome set. It was possibly one of the best sets I've ever done. Now, I wouldn't have got that set if I'd been a bloke, I don't think. I'd have still been playing the late night venues.
Right.
And I knew when I got that call, this is going to be like probably the best set you've ever played in a massive marquee, heaving Saturday night. I think Next Men played first. And it was so cool. They even had like 2 trolleys so that they could set your your kit up exactly how you wanted it. So when they went off, they took their kit off on your kind of kit, and it was like, right, so what do you need? And I went, 2 decks and a mixer. And I was like, no. And I was like, I'm really sorry, I don't even play CDs or any of that digital stuff. So literally like 2 decks and a mixer. And I'm like, yeah, that's
Do you do that? Do you do digital now, or are you still all vinyl? Wow, Mo, you got to get with the fucking times, man.
I
Come
know.
on. You know you can do loads of cool shit with these controllers now.
I know. Well, listen, I have handed over the reins of my business actually, not too long ago, and this newfound sense of freedom. Certainly, music is an area that I definitely want to come back to, because I keep hearing that, come on, Mo.
Maybe you might get in the studio.
I know what my records look like, and I know where they are. So when I'm playing, I'm like, I need that one with the red cover. Where is it?
Creature of habit.
I'd have to learn the names of all my records, and that would be tricky.
Yeah, that is tough. That is one of the tough ones. Maybe you might get. Is that if you this newfound thing? Are you going to get in the studio?
I don't know. I think it might be a bit big-headed to think that I might be any good in the studio. I've no clue.
Well, you only find out one way, don't you?
Yeah.
So DJ rap is the name that immediately springs to mind when you think of female rave artists from the 90s. What's your opinion of rap as a DJ and a producer?
Listen, I had so much respect for rap back in the day, and I always felt she had not been given the credibility that she deserved. She made fire tunes. I mean, Divine Rhythm is I paid 50 quid for that record, and I don't regret it for 1 second. I've rinsed it. I've played it so many times. She's legendary. She's beautiful. She's intelligent. She mixes well. She produces well. I mean, what is not to love? And I really respect and hope for her that she now gets the kind of credibility, the recognition that she deserves, and does well with her new project.
Well, when I interviewed her, I said that, or rather, she said that people ask her all the time why she didn't do more to help women, but nobody ever asks that of a man. And I'm as guilty as anybody of not asking people that question, and I regret it now. I've spent the last 9 months interviewing male rave artists from the 90s, and I regret not asking them why they didn't do more to increase diversity on, behind the decks. But what do you make of her viewpoint there?
Well, I just think you should try and give a leg up to whoever you can. And that's, for me, that's where the homegrown rave came from, because at Flashback, there was no opportunity to give up and coming talent a go. So homegrown was a weekly drum and bass night, and it was all about the first 2 sets of the night were to people that had sent in cassette tapes. So I do think you should try and give people a leg up. I'm a big believer in karma. What goes around comes around. But look, I'm not very famous, Tom, and you're interviewing me now, so I'm very happy about that. So I think you've done your bit, to be honest.
I think you hide your light under a bushel, Mo. We're coming to slag now. There have been attempts made to improve the situation, including the event that you talked about in 1994 called Slag. We should say it's called Straight, Lesbian and Gay. They wanted to make the most of their sort of rare female DJs, which is where you got your name Mistress Mo, because you started wearing leather and rubber. What did you say when you told you that?
Well, it was so basically I was DJ Mo for a year, and I used to wear like dungarees or t-shirts or whatever and tie my hair back, and so not only did it not look like a girl on the flyer, it possibly didn't look like a girl when you're standing in front of the decks either. And Slag was this wonderfully flamboyant kind of, what it said, straight, lesbian and gay. It was upstairs at the steering wheel. And they were just like, look, Mo, you really need to, you need to make more of this. You're our resident and you're a rare breed. So they came up with Mistress Mo, and it was them that suggested the outfit changes, actually. And an interesting one there, the steering wheel was above Legs 11, which was a strip club. So when I played my sets there, I used to go down and see the girls in the strip club who I knew as well. And they'd be downstairs, and they'd be kind of coming downstairs, peeling £20 notes out of their bras and this and that and the other. And they were all like these ridiculously beautiful, strong women who I don't think the men were taking advantage of them. I think it was totally the other way around. They were rinsing their assets. I can't necessarily say it's something I'd want my daughter to do, but they were making loads of money. They were safe. They were, just the kind of juxtaposition of those two things happening at the same time was interesting as well. But I never really liked Mistress Mo as a name. But by the time I kind of realised, I wanted to change it. It was too late. It had stuck.
And how did you feel about wearing leather and rubber? And what do you make?
You know, I mean, I've got long legs. I was quite skinny back then. It was fine. I used to, you know, you have to put talcum powder on to squeeze yourself into this bloody rubber dress. I've still got it actually for a joke. I've got a photo of Lewis Osborne, Ozzy's offspring, trying to put it on in a hotel room actually. But you know,
but I mean, but it strikes me as a bit crass that, and I know that they were trying to do something that was positive for women and trying to lift up their female DJs. But you know, blokes don't need to do that.
I totally agree with you. And now that's the good thing. This shows how far we've come from 1994, because then it was brilliant. It was a gimmick. It was, you know, I went along with it because it was fine. It didn't upset me particularly, apart from my feet hurt in those stupid boots. But I think that it does demonstrate how far we've come, because now, and now I do take umbrage at female DJs who DJ topless or whatever. It's just like, you just shouldn't need to do that. DJ well. Wasn't this some footage that came out of some gorgeous DJ, and she was doing all this set and like, and there weren't even any leads plugged in the back of the mixer, you know, and it was just like, oh come on, you know. So use your assets, that's fine, but
and it's still it's still incredibly depressing that a lot of that if you're more attractive as a female, it tends to make you more successful. I mean, how shit is that? I mean, it's absolutely.
I mean, when you've got a face like mine,
crap.
That's quite depressing. This is a
Oh, shut up, you gorgeous woman.
This is a weather-worn face. But I'm
how old are you, Mo?
47.
I think you've got a perfectly lovely face for a 47-year-old.
But the point is, Tom, that I'm lucky enough to not care. This is my face. I've lived in this face. I've had plenty of late nights, you know. It's all good as far as I'm concerned. But there are plenty of women now who would be looking at these terrible furrows and all the rest of it and going straight for plastic surgery or Botox or whatever because of the pressure. And that really, if I can give my kids anything, I've got a girl and a boy actually. I want to give them that sense of like, it's okay to be you. You know, I put makeup on today because frankly, that's fine. I don't normally wear makeup. And if I was a bloke, I probably wouldn't be wearing makeup. But then I look on the positive side, which is actually, if you're feeling a bit tired and you need to do yourself up a bit, you can slap on a bit of paint and suddenly you're in a better place, which blokes don't have the opportunity to do. So it's kind of, it is swings and roundabouts. But there is definitely, there is more pressure on women to look good. I bet none of your male, artists that you've interviewed have worried particularly about what they were going to wear.
What, to a rave?
Or to be interviewed.
I don't know.
Maybe they put a nice new t-shirt on. I don't know.
Maybe they only have to put a nice top on. Look at this.
You got your pajamas on. Oh God, I don't know what I'm going to see here.
You got the tracky bottoms on.
Hey, at least you've got some bottoms on.
Oh, that would have been good, wouldn't it? If I'd have turned around, if I'd have got up and I was totally naked from the bottom down, and I just spun around on my chair. If anyone's listening to this on audio, by the way, I just got up on my chair and span around and showed them my ass to show my tracksuit bottoms. That would have been brilliant. Oh, what a! Well, I've missed a trick there. I've missed a trick. Just front, not back. So also in 1997, there was other things done. There was a gift from the gods. It was an all-girl DJ tour sponsored by Aussie Hair Care. You toured the UK, a couple of dates in Germany. Who organised that? What was and who else did that?
There was a lady called Jane. Oh, I haven't thought about Jane for ages. Hello, Jane. Rucroft, and she ran the agency from an office in Nottingham. And actually, I used to drive up there and kind of work for her a couple of days a week. It was her concept. And it was again in 97. It was a good concept. Emma Frisco was part of that. Like I say, Lisa Lashes. There was a load of girls. We did a photo shoot at some swanky hotel in Chelsea, which was very nice. Again, it was a positive. You know, jeans and like little t-shirts and whatever. But Aussie Hair Care did our hair and whatnot. And it was just a great opportunity to. Oh God, that was messy, you know, because we were girls, we got a hotel room. That was part of the deal. If you want to book us, that's fine. We have to have a hotel room. Well, imagine like we'd go to these clubs and just get totally hammered, play, go back to the hotel room. I mean, it was an awful way to earn the living.
That was brilliant. and was it a success in terms of? Well, you enjoyed it, obviously, but was it a success in terms of engaging women?
I don't think it ever hit mainstream, but we played a lot of gigs between I think there's about 6 or 7, maybe 8 DJs on that. And between us, we did a lot of gigs. So again, in terms of inspiring women, demonstrating that there can be women behind the decks, women. It was Jane's thing that she put together. I'm hoping that through that we did inspire, and when we had adverts in like Mix Mag and things like that, so again, even people that might not have seen us there were like, oh, here's a bunch of girl DJs that have got nice hair,
Yeah. And so we have improved. That's clear from you having to wear leather and rubber in 1994 to today. But as we've still said, we've got a way to go because women are, unfortunately, female DJs are often judged upon their looks, perhaps more than their DJing skills. How far have we got still to go? And can we, and more importantly, will we ever get there?
I think we will get there. I totally think we'll get there because the women are smashing it now. I mean, I kind of listened to a few sets, and I don't know if I mentioned Lens earlier from the hospitality camp. I mean, I've listened to a few of her podcasts recently. She's absolutely destroying the dance floors. And there's no reason not to book women. We want to see women. Okay, it might be positive discrimination, but it's not like it's positive discrimination from girls who can do the job, and soon I'm sure following on from that, there will be more women like in sort of doing the promoting side of things. So they'll be promoting women as well. So I really think it's only up from here. My daughter's 10 now. I don't think she'll ever stop to think that there's something that she couldn't do because she's a girl.
But the modern rave scene perhaps more set up for women to prosper than it was in the early 90s.
I just feel like there's this whole, even like in the festival world, there's lots of articles now, aren't there, about why are there not more headline bands that are women? Why are there so few females on lineups? So if you are creative, musical, talented, and you are female, hopefully now you will get that kind of push that you need to kind of have the courage or the strength or whatever it is to kind of push yourself forward, because people want to have more diverse lineups. That that it's almost like it's there for the taking now, I feel.
X amount of pressure, X amount of raw.
So as we come towards the end of this interview between myself, Tom Latcham here on Raw, and Mistress Mo, also known as Mo Jones, going to sort of bring you up to date with what she's been up to, look back over the 90s rave scene. But to start off this section, you've spun all sorts. You clearly have an eclectic taste in music. What sort of music do you prefer to play out these days? And do you prefer to rave to these days? I mean, obviously pre-COVID, of course.
Yeah, it's drum and bass all the way, baby. Like early jungle right through to sort of really up to date stuff. Drum and bass is much easier to mix. I think I alluded to it earlier. Old school hardcore is a bit random at times. It's it's very, very varied on the BPMs and stuff. So in terms of really getting your head down and getting in that groove, just slap on some jungle. But it's nice to be able to mix up old stuff and new stuff. I really like that. I like mixing really heavy beats with vocals. That's a kind of favorite trick of mine, slamming two things together and seeing what happens.
And you know what? I don't think enough people do that. And I think it's probably because, I don't know, that people know what they want and they want it safe. But I love hearing, sorry, just to finish, I love hearing, say, mixing a heavy jungle tune with a sort of, even with a 4-beat, and creating your own jungle techno of your own and taking it on a journey. People don't mix up the styles enough, and I find it a real shame.
Without going too much off on the vinyl thing, I mean, that is my craft. I mean, it sounds a bit cheesy, but my craft is mixing two records together to sound really good. And I think that a friend of mine actually said to me, what you lose with like digital mixing is, when you start to hear, when someone's mixing vinyl, you start to hear it going, and you're like, as an audience member, you're like, oh, they're gonna fuck it up, here comes the train crash, and it's like you kind of pull it back in, and you're like, oh, nailed it, like, here we go. And that sort of sense of excitement that it might go wrong, you don't really get that. Digital mixing sounds so perfect, you kind of don't get that slight kind of judder of beats that's kind of pointing in that direction. And then the other thing is the speed of mixing. When you've got vinyl, you want to mix, you want to kind of let those tunes overlap. You want to play that record for 2 minutes or whatever. With digital mixing, you might be playing a tune for 30 seconds, and then on comes the next one, and that's so as a producer, it must be quite depressing nowadays, because there's not much point in producing a track that's more than 3 minutes long, right? Because if you're mixing it, you're going to mix the kind of main breakdown or the main riff or whatever, and then you're off onto the next.
Not me, mate. I leave her in the mix for fucking ages, and it's brilliant. I mean, it's a risky thing. It's a risky tactic when I DJ, and no one, frankly, wants to hear me DJ out. But when I do DJ, I'm like chopping, I'm cutting, I'm mixing it for like 3 minutes, and you know the problem is as well is I don't know necessarily know the tunes as well as like I would have done. You know, if you're a professional DJ, you know the tunes. So it is on occasion a risky business doing that. But again, when with digital, you can sort of look at the waveforms and you're like, right, I know that color sort of goes with that. Okay, I think you're going to be all right here. And you sort of, it's a bit of a white knuckle ride, but you know, it is fun. And so there's difference to that as well. Another question that came in from you is from 88 to 98 on Twitter, who says Flashback was the best rave for a long time, from Crunch to Q Club and beyond. Loved it. Can you ask Mo what happened to the shop though?
Oh, cool. Well, we obviously sold old school records, so we spent a lot of time tracking down collections and buying them and cataloguing it and all the rest of it. We didn't ever really have an online catalogue. It was very much come and see us. And then all the way through, we've been selling tickets for events. And you know, because we had Flashback, we were so well trusted. We were the ticket agent at the time. You know, we moved to e-ticketing. We were Gatecrashers agent. We were God's Kitchen's agent. It was just, you know, and that side of the business was doing so well that in the end we were kind of like this, you know, sorting out all this old school vinyl. It's very time consuming. It's expensive. And it just kind of, I think one day we had some, I can't even remember who bought it off us in there. A guy came in and was like, I'll take the lot. So we sold the lot. Yeah, job lot.
How many records is that?
13,000, I think.
Wow. What?
They came in a massive lorry and took the whole lot, all the like storage.
Who was it?
We had built. I want to say that it was someone from Spain. We had a chap that used to come over from Spain, and he'd book in with us, and he would literally come and spend a whole like day, maybe 2 days. He'd stay in a hotel, and he would go through all our records, and he'd spend so much. He was like our favourite customer.
I bet he was.
And I have a funny feeling in the end that it was him that kind of came in. But that's and then we obviously launched Ticket Sellers in 2006 properly, even though we've been selling tickets for donkey's years before that. So it was just a sign of the times, really, that because the ticket side of things was going so well, the shop kind of.
Do you feel sad about the fact that record shops are pretty much?
Do you know, there was a post on Facebook the other day, and it was talking about the experience. So my job was to fly a Flashback, and so I don't know, 2-3 times a week I would go into town. I'd have my bag of flyers, my bag of posters. I'd walk around all the shops, all the hairdressers, Oasis Market, relentlessly putting up posters, putting out flyers. And then invariably I'd end up in Massive or Tempest or one of those amazing record shops, and you'd be chatting, you'd be sitting there, you know, someone else would come in. It was another one of those experiences that I think I feel really bad that people aren't going to have that experience. I think some record shops are beginning to come back now, but it was a total one. You know, you'd spend hours on it. You go down there with your wages on a Saturday afternoon, and you'd come home when you'd spent the lot. You know, I mean, I can't even imagine in my life how much I've spent on records. But yeah, that record
probably not as much as the Spanish guy.
Yeah.
And in terms of ticket sellers, I mean, because that would have been sort of the when online. So you read Frostbook, he talks about how he was banging on about online sales, online shopping for ages, and then he went into this sort of pit of depression and drug use, and he fully admits that. And he came back out, of it, and he's like, and Brian G was like, mate, everyone's doing that online ticket selling thing. And he's like, what? I've been saying that idea for ages. But it would have been the advent of that of that sort of time where it all moved online. How successful has it been? Did you hit it at just the right moment?
We hit it at exactly the right moment, and it was more again internal, because we were driving around after Flashback to Manchester, to Exeter, to, you know, dropping off new flyers and posters and picking up money. It was awful. It was relentless. It was, you know, we'd get there and the guy with the key for the safe wasn't there that day, and you'd have to, and we were like, this has to be easier. So the e-ticketing thing, it made our life easier for Flashback, and it also then for other promoters around the country who might not have sent us a book of tickets, we were like, well, we'll just do it anyway. We'll just do it on our website, and we'll send you some codes, and you just let those people in. So we were literally one of the first people, I think, to do that e-ticket thing. Now I look back on that and kick myself, because I think if we'd got funding at that point, we could have been absolutely huge. We had everybody. We were like, well trusted, well known. Some of the names that we were selling for were huge then. But we kind of just let all the others kind of come like a big tide and sort of wash over us. But it's all good. We're happy in our niche now. We sell for most of the country's best independent festivals, and that is, I always wondered what happened to ravers. What do you do next? And then in 2008, I went to Shambhala Festival, and I was like, oh, this is where all the old ravers go. And it was like a rebirth. It was I'd never been to a festival before, and yet it was that feeling of unity again, of something really special, something unique. And I was just like, this is bloody brilliant. Festivals is my thing. So
nice.
Yeah. Another happy
an accident. Yeah, well, that's good. But without obviously festivals really for the last year, how has the last been for you? Have you coped financially?
It's been really, really tough actually. And if you'd asked me a few months ago, I might have told you a different story. But, again, you have to kind of look at what you're given, and you can either sit around and moan about it, or you can crack on and do something about it. And for us, I felt like maybe the business has got into a bit of a rut. We've been doing too much of the same thing and all the rest of it. And COVID was the kick up the arse we needed, I think, to change things around. And I took a back seat. I've handed over responsibility for the business to a new CEO. He's absolutely smashing it. He's got a new lease of life. He's got a new direction for the business. I think people have looked at that and really appreciated. I did it out of necessity. The business couldn't afford to fund all of us, and because I had other ways of earning an income, I kind of said, this is fair enough. I didn't want to lose the team that we'd built up. And actually, the last few months have been so positive. We've taken on new clients. We just state the obvious, we just need some events to happen now. The will is there. We are talking every day to organisers about how we're going to do proof of vaccination, or proof of a test on the door. We're planning a million different scenarios.
How hard is that?
Really hard. We're sitting on groups, we're speaking to safety advisory groups, we're going on this, that and the other. We're trying to equip ourselves with as much knowledge as we can possibly have, so whatever the government end up throwing at us, we can go, yes, we can do that. But obviously without government backed insurance, that's caused our two biggest clients, Boomtown and Shambhala, already to postpone to 2022, because they just can't take the financial risk. They start spending now big money now, and if there was that like horrible last minute cancellation due to some kind of COVID scenario, it would put them out of business. So for them, they had no option but to go next year and kind of ride the thing. So that's, for people's, I'd never really thought about festivals providing mental health backing for people, but it genuinely, having those things to look forward to, kind of coming together with your friends, it's been such a massive void. And obviously the nightclub industry has been similarly decimated, but we need enough's enough now. Kind of, come on, we've done the hard bit.
What have you made of the way the government has treated the nightlife industry over the last year?
I mean, they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, I think. It's really difficult. As a business owner, they have been pretty generous. Furlough has been an absolute lifesaver. We've had some grant money, it's saved our space, it saved our bacon, there's no two ways about it. But does that make me perhaps does that let the government off the hook a bit for some of the ridiculous lack of, clarity and ridiculous lack of decision making? Maybe it does, because, they've almost bought me off. But now's the time. You've had it your way for this long. But hats off, you've done really well with the vaccine program and all the rest of it. But now it's time to kind of, we need concrete guidelines. Guidance. Thank God for Melvin Benn, to be honest. And there's a sentence I never thought I'd say. But he has pushed for the events research program, was what they always said, wasn't it? We need the events research program. We need the data from that, and then we'll tell you how we're going to get nightlife open again. Well, in that original set of events, there wasn't even a festival in there. So, you know, Melvin pushed for the Sefton Park gig, which they've now had, and he's now pushing for, because now the next hurdle that we've got, and most of the festivals that we sell for are camping festivals. So it's all very well to test people on the way in, but when they're there for 3 or 4 days, what does that look like? So again, thanks to Melvin, we're going to have a test event that we can get some data from. But I think everyone is weary now. It's like, you know, we just need to trust event organisers to do it in a safe way. Let's just crack on, please.
And what about performing? How much have you missed that?
I mean, I really only do like 3 or 4 gigs a year. I do really good gigs, and I only do a few of them. I have missed it. I've missed the going out more, to be honest, more than the performing. I mean, I've got quite a few gigs lined up the rest of this year. I need to mention Amazon on the 4th of September, because that's been postponed, but I literally, the lineup for that is incredible. And I've got a wax on gig at the end of at the start of December, and again, can't wait to play for those guys. They're such a lovely bunch, you know, and it's a small gig, but it's a brilliant. So anyone who looks out for wax on gig at the Hare and Hounds, that's well worth going to. So
okay, and you said you stepped back from the business because you could earn money elsewhere. What else is it that you managed to do to pay your way?
No, don't ask me that question. I'm a horrible property developer. I mean, you know, it totally takes away my lovely story. But when I
know a lovely place in the centre of Birmingham, which used to be a church and then a rave venue. It's in real need of some investment there, Mo. So just a little tip to you.
I was lucky enough to invest in a few properties when I had money, and so it was an opportunity to go back. And I've done courses and educated myself. And again, it's all about like looking at your assets and what you've got. And I was able to kind of to turn those good decisions that I made years ago into something positive. And
well, now it's paid off in the last year. Absolutely.
Well, not yet. It's just kept the wall from the door, but it's certainly I had something else I could go to generate an income. So it was a good time to do that.
Yeah, that's great. And what do you think the rave scene will look like post-pandemic? My concern is there's loads of events come up. If the roadmap is as is, that there will be loads of people who bought tickets thinking they want to go to the rave, but then actually when it comes to it, they can't be asked because, you know, they're people, and that's what people who of a certain age perhaps do. So I think there's going to be a lot of half-empty raves. That's my opinion. But what's the feeling that you're getting as a ticket seller? And what will the scene look like? What will the music be like? Will it have changed from when we last went out?
I think the demand is there. I really do. I mean, we saw when Boris did his announcement in February, the roadmap announcement, we sold 6 months worth of tickets in about a week. I mean, it was literally incredible. I think we did over 10 million quid's worth of tickets in a week. No. It was insane. Wow. Yeah, nuts. So I think the demand is there. I think the younger demographic will care less, to be honest, and I think the older demographic have probably been vaccinated. So I can see the raves being full, to be honest. And there's waiting lists. You know, it's like if you don't want to come, a lot of people are saying, "Well, just ask for a refund, and we'll sell the ticket to someone who does want to come," because we don't want to have a half-empty rave.
Yeah.
In terms of music, I think, like I said earlier, we've locked in all these creative people into their little bubbles. So I'm really excited to hear what they've come up with. Potentially, we might suffer a little bit from lack of collaboration. It's not really been good to go and sit in a studio and breathe all over someone else in the last year. But I think it's going to be good. Looking silver linings, obviously there's been no... we can't have international artists at festivals this year. So a lot of festivals have had to say, look, all these big international headliners, we've had to scrap them, and we're turning more, to our own internal talent. So I think, again, there'll be a lot of people getting a leg up that have been coming through the ranks for that reason. So that's really good. That'll make a difference. And the other thing I think is maybe people will finally realise that it's not all about the headliners. It's like, this is another lovely thing about the events that we work with. They are about the event. They're about the experience. They're about the whole thing, the day and the night. Don't just come because you're going to go and see a bunch of bands that you've seen on, I was going to say Top of the Pops then, that shows my age, doesn't it? on the main
the internet, I think, is what it is.
I would really like for people to look back on the last 18 months and think how much they've missed being in a field with their friends, going out with their buddies, and actually just give the promoters and the organisers a bit of a you know, a bit of a thank you for providing this space, this wonderful creative, like, you know, there might be light installations or stuff going on in the woods. Go and check all that stuff out. You know, it's not just about getting mashed in front of a stage. So I'm hoping that some positive will come out of it.
Although it is all about getting mashed in front of a stage. So I'm only kidding. So looking back now over your career and then, you know, because we are nominally about it, certainly we started off about the 90s rave scene in this podcast. Can you sum up what the 90s rave scene has given to you and your life?
Wow, that's a big question. I mean, my whole life is I'm very, very blessed. I'm very aware that I'm very blessed. I've been able to do pretty much what I want. I've never had a job. I've worked really, really hard, but I kind of there's a kind of special place in my heart for what we went through, what we experienced, what we were lucky enough to have in the early 90s. And you know, many days are quite dull and boring and mundane, and you only have to kind of and lots of people that were raving in the 90s, you know, similarly probably have fairly mundane and boring jobs, and you kind of look back on that period and it's just provided my whole life with a story. Actually, you wouldn't be talking to me today if I hadn't done that. So I feel like it's a little treasured packet, and it's over there in the past, but it's provided fuel actually for really everything I've done ever since.
And what did it do for the wider country? Because of course the rave scene was something that developed in Britain. It was a very British invention, and you know, so was jungle, for instance, and a lot of rave music has come out of the UK. It's been a major part of our cultural heritage in the UK. But what do you think the 90s rave scene did for the UK? Well,
I think it gave people a sense of belonging, community, which is something that I think is going to be really important moving forward, the sort of message of community and kind of looking out for each other. I'd like to think that maybe we can take some lessons, that it was so non-judgmental, you know. Please, let's do that again. I do sometimes find that, like, raves now, that people aren't so much up for the banter and whatever, and it's just like, don't judge. Yeah, I'm an old fogey, but I've been doing this since before you were born, so let's have a little dance together, or let's have a little rave, you know. I don't know. I just yeah, it's just all a bit special.
Okay. And what was your favourite year of the 90s and why?
I guess for me it probably was 92, because that was the real year of exploration for me. It started off at Camden Roundhouse at a spiral squat on New Year's Eve, you know, at the end of 1991. 92 took me to Birmingham, and all the things that I sort of experienced there. It was free parties, and it was the big sort of you know, rave promotions and stuff, and it was an amazing year.
Nice. And what does the future hold finally for Mistress Mo?
Well, like I say, I've got a bit of time on my hands now for the first time like ever, so you know, perhaps get myself a CDJ or whatever the new thing is now, and get myself doing some digital mixing.
You know, we've moved on from CDJs.
I know, sorry.
Well. Like you that was in the middle. That was in the middle.
Now
controllers.
Okay, one of them. I don't know. I'd love to explore music more. I am really looking forward to the gigs that I've got coming up. So I think having more time means perhaps more DJ work, which would be lovely. Ticket Sellers is doing absolutely great, so I'm sure there'll be opportunity to develop my role there, my part-time role as it is at the moment. You know, and my kids are still quite young, so actually spending some more time with my kids would be nice before they turn into horrible teenagers and disappear. So, you know,
like we all did.
Yeah.
Well, Mo, it's been a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast and being such an open and an honest and fun guest. So thanks for your time, and maybe we'll see you at that Q Club reunion in the daytime, of course.
The third one.
The daytime. It's in the day. I'm leaving. I can't go past midnight, okay?
No, midnight's fine.
I'll see you on the door, Tom. On the dance floor. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that's it for another episode of Raw, and if you like what you've heard, we'd love you to get involved. All of us here at Raw HQ buzz hard off how much you, the Raw crew, enjoy our work, and your generous cash donations have been a huge help since our launch. But we're now a team of 5, putting in combined 80 hours a week for no wages. We've got loads of plans to go further, expand our team and offer, but that does mean that our costs are also increasing. So we could really use your help to keep Raw growing and developing as you've done since we started. So please do check out our website. Initially it's rawuk.com for interesting extra content and to get your hands on our first ever range of Raw merchandise. That's rawuk.com. We've also launched a new membership scheme where you can donate to create more interesting and fun content on an ongoing basis, and you'll even get stuff in return. So head to patreon.com/rawukpods. That's patreon.com/rawukpods to see what's on offer. You can also join our YouTube membership, which is the same, or if you're not bothered about membership but you'd like to support us with a few quid as a one-off or repeat donation, head to our website and click the PayPal link. That website URL, one more time, rawuk.com. Respect to you for your support and for getting to the end of this episode. Please keep supporting us and help ensure there's more quality content coming your way on a regular basis. Oi, oi.